tomato trellising. That's next.
Are you ready? Are you ready for a trellis to make Josh Sattin jealous? Here we go. So today we are going to make a tomato trellis. And I've seen some videos on the web and I've seen some YouTubes. In fact, I watched one called A Trellis to Make You Jealous. We're going to use the trellis, I think it was at Josh Sattin from Sattin Farms, did the trellis to make you jealous. We'll probably do one of those later. Right now, we're going to tomato trellis those 3 garden beds back behind me. And we're going to use this lumber. And this one comes from the Millennial Gardener. This is kind of a twist on the Millennial Gardener. And so if you want to see the kind of the template for the idea that I had behind putting this together, go check out the Millennial Gardener's tomato trellising and you can see how he used his 4x4s. We're going to do a little different design to go around our garden beds. We just need to do the garden beds themselves. So we're going to use kind of a T-post model. For each garden bed, we are using 2 12-foot 4x4s. And then we're also using the T-posts are going to be out of 8-foot 4x4s. But we'll put all the pieces together in the video so that you guys can see all of the different parts that we use. So here. So I took the 8-foot 4x4s and I cut them into 2-foot sections for the cross beams. And then I went ahead and sunk in some of these hooks and then some of these screw eyes. And there we go. And then each one will be on one side. And I'll show you how it all goes together at the end. But that's what I did with the 8-foot section. You can see over here I have several cuts of them to put all the hardware in.
This is the next day, and after running into several snags yesterday, either not having the right size parts or not having the parts we needed, making several trips back and forth to the store, we finally decided on a course of action going forward. We are ready to make the trellises, and we'll show you how we're gonna do that. All right, honey, what do we got going on here?
We're gonna put the cross beams on the posts. They're gonna go here like that. Because originally I was gonna use strong ties, but the ones I got were the wrong ones. It cut up the cost so much that I decided not to do it. And we decided to screw the living daylights out of some 2x4s. And I mean, we'll probably use some liquid nails as well. We're about halfway through the process, I think.
The battery's going dead, so I'm gonna go charge you while we finish building these, and then I'll show you the update. This is the very last one, so I thought we better video one of them.
All right, so all we're really doing here is we're taking the 2-foot section of the 4x4 and the 12-foot section of the 4x4, and we're finding a way to join them together in a T. We're using the 2x4 sections that we cut off. I had some scrap laying around, thank goodness, because lumber is ridiculous right now. All I'm doing is I'm just laying the 2x4 down, and we're not trying to be perfect. We're just trying to get these trellises up so that the tomatoes have a place to hang out. What I like to do is I like to mark where this sits. I like to pre-drill the holes. This is a really overbuilt trellising system. I'm not really sure what I had in mind, except for I wanted to do a project for days on end. All right, so there we go. And we're using these decking nails. It goes almost halfway through everything. So liquid nails, again, also not needed. It's just that, I don't know, I like to over-prepare for things sometimes. So I'm just gonna put a small bead on there. I'm not gonna do much, just a little extra. And then I'm gonna put it on there following my mark so that it's just about in the right place. Give it a little pressure. There we go. Also my first impact driver. And the second day of using it, I've always used a hammer drill, and I didn't know there was a difference between the two, because it's not really been my bag. I'm only handy as needed.
It's totally my bag. Not really that I'm particularly handy, but I'd like to be.
Well, mostly I have to thank my dad, because I spent years hanging out with him while he did all sorts of really cool handyman sort of stuff. And everything I know, I pretty much just know because I hung out with him. I know that there's a lot of guys out there that love to hang out in their shops and do stuff, and it's cool and it's fun, but it's never really been my bag.
You're starting to appreciate it more as you get older, though, aren't you?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt that everything that I learned has come in incredibly handy, you know, ever since I married you. Same process. I like to make my little mark. Man, we're almost done with putting this together.
Yeah, that's exciting.
I started out putting 4 screws here, but I don't think it's really all that necessary. The last couple I've been doing, I've just been putting 2 screws in here. Oh yeah, that's good stuff right there. Really?
E's Handy Comedy Hour.
I don't think it's time to give it a name. At least not yet. I hope not. All right.
Well done.
Never used an impact drill before. Yesterday, but this Makita one seems to be all right.
And the super cool thing about it is this battery here also is compatible with the string trimmer.
And there we go.
Yay.
All done.
Now we just gotta go dig 24 feet worth of holes.
Now the work begins. I may have gone a little too high.
Well, let's see. Do you think it's too tall?
Yeah. Yeah.
That looks very dangerous.
Does it look a little tall?
Yeah.
It is a little tall. But I mean, we could reach it with the ladder. So we got it out here and we put it in the hole, and it was clearly just taller than we needed it to be.
And you're cutting it to 2 feet.
Yeah, we're cutting it off. We're cutting 2 more feet off of it.
So this is a nice day.
You're right, it isn't.
Yeah. And this day is nice.
And you gotta hold the camera still.
And
There. See it up there?
yeah. Okay.
We cut the 2 feet off. We feel a lot better about that. Then we dug a 2-foot hole on the other side, but we wanted it to be level. So we measured our pole and we ended up only having to cut 10 inches off of this side to make it level. We have our first posts up for our tomato trellis. We still have to hang the wire and the hooks, but we're one step closer. We've got all the support posts for the trellis system installed now. That is a huge relief to have those done. Now what we have left to do is we've got to string our wire from there to there on each one. Then we'll have tomato hooks that we have to put on them. For now, we're done with this step. On to the next.
Well, just as time expired, as it's starting to rain, it would appear that we have successfully put these things up. The tomato trellises that we think will make you jealous, Josh Sattin. Just a matter of putting up the tomato hooks, doing the turnbuckles, make sure everything's tight, and trellising them up. And then we do have to put in some midway braces, but that's a little bit in the future. This is what's called a roller hook, a roller tomato hook. These roller hooks, they have a little catch on them right here. So you just squeeze this, and that allows it to go past to loosen it up. But to tighten it, you don't have to do that. You just scroll it up. And if you can keep tension on it while you're doing it, just a slight tension, then that's always better.
You want to show them this little piece there?
Sure. This is how we put this trellis system together, using airplane wire, and the airplane wire goes into one of these little eye hooks, and we just screwed the eye hook directly into the wood, and then we looped this around right there to kind of protect the wire a little bit. And then we have these clamps, and we're just using bolt cutters to go ahead and smash it down and kind of hold that in place, and it's not going to go anywhere. On the other end of this, all the way down there, is a turnbuckle so that we can do a little bit of tightening and loosening as needed once all this is in place.
Down here on the end is the turnbuckle. If this gets saggy or loose during the season and we want to tighten it, we just come up here and spin that turnbuckle around and tighten it up. Good morning. We got them up and we've got most of the hooks on. But a huge storm came through last night, and admittedly, my bad, this ladder was still standing right here in between these two garden beds because I wasn't quite done. I was getting the boys ready for bed, and a storm blew in, and the ladder fell over on this garden bed here. And as you can see, these clips have been pulled up because the ladder fell on the wire. All of the limbs are like sticking straight up now. As that one is pretty okay. These two are almost completely stripped. See, because it came and it put the tension on, and then this just pulled up and it stripped all of the leaves off on the way up. I'm not exactly running short on tomato plants, so I'm just gonna let them stay. I think they'll be fine. I mean, they're not topped. Trim off the damaged pieces. You know, I'm just gonna let them recover and see how they do. The wind came from that direction. Oh, they look a lot better this morning. They were pretty bad last night. Some of these taller ones you can see. So they're all laying over like that. They're not terrible. They'll be fine.
We're using 1/2-inch EMT conduit for this. And the pieces that we're using to assemble everything are from a company called Maker Pipe. And Maker Pipe, they're like a little mom and pop shop, I guess you could say. They're a small business, and what they've done is they've taken the idea behind the industrial pipe clamps and they've made it accessible to DIYers. So let me show you what this consists of. I'll take my gloves off so that you can see it better. All right, so Maker Pipe makes these pipe connectors, and they kind of fit in like a jigsaw puzzle, and they close around your pipe. This is a T, you fit it on here, and this is a spacer. You can see at the end of the pipe, because I'm using 1/2-inch instead of 3/4-inch pipe, these spacers, I think they're 10 cents a piece. So you put the spacers on there so that you can make up the difference if you're using 1/2-inch instead of 3/4-inch. And the way that this works is they close together, around whatever the pipe is. And then you have two little pieces here, the screw and then an Allen bolt. And they can go in either way. They go in between the two, and then you take the little nut like that. And it's a specialized nut, so you can't just use any nut for it. You drop that in, that's one way of doing it. And then you can stick the screw through and pretty much hand tighten it as much as you need to kind of get to where you want to be. There's actually a heat fitting. It's a piece of plastic that you heat up and it shrink wraps around it. You can see that there's actually some of them already on right here. And once we have it together, I'll slide this particular piece of plastic over it, like so. And then we'll use our heat gun to heat it up, and it will kind of suck it together and give it a little bit more strength. I talked with the owner the other day, and he was super nice. I had ordered the wrong amount of shims, so I needed a couple more to be added in, and he did that for me. And they have these connections not only for the tees, but also for right angles and any of the other possible connectors. And we decided to go with a tee for the garden because it was going to fit within how much pipe we had already purchased. If this doesn't hold up the way we hoped it would, because it could use some more support than the way that we're bracketing it in at the bottom, then maybe next year, instead of leaving the tees up, what we'll do is we'll do a complete arbor kind of thing around the garden to hold all that up, and it would make them much more sturdy. We'll think about that next year. We'll see how these hold up with just the tees. We're gonna go ahead and assemble them now.
All right, so our poles were 2 feet too long. So now we're gonna cut them with a pipe cutter.
This is an older pipe cutter.
So you just go around and around like that, and then what do you do?
Well, I tighten it a little bit every time it gets loose. Basically, there's a little blade in here, and that blade scores the conduit, and it digs into the conduit a little bit, and then it gets a little bit looser, so you turn the knob and continue to cut around it, and eventually this will give you a fairly clean cut. There are other ways of doing this. You can do this with an angle iron, like with a cutter. Whoop, there we go. And if we want, we could sand that down and make it smooth, but since it's going in the garden bed, we're not going to do that. So while we're in the process of putting the middle T-posts in for the tomato trellis, we had to lower the tomatoes so that they wouldn't get skinned alive when we lifted their guy wire up. In the process, they ended up kind of being laid over to one side or another. And so here you can kind of see the clementines have already started to put some fruit on. And the mortgage lifter's got some going on too. It was underneath all the foliage. So atomic grape, and they turn kind of a purplish color when they're completely ready to go. Oh, there's a Valencia.
Really?
Yep. There it is. We may have some tomatoes this year. All of Jana's zinnias.
Several hours later, we took a break, went and had some lunch, got out of the sun a little bit. It looks pretty bright back there, but it's not actually. It's a little bit cloudy. And so we're gonna come back out and finish. We got the 3 middle pieces in there, But now we're going to tighten that wire up some. So we'll put you on another time lapse.
We just finished tightening up the trellises, and you can see we put the T-posts in. These were drooping quite a bit, so we wanted to tighten them up a little bit more. And to do that, we had to loosen most all of these. So the tomatoes have fallen over off to one side or the other. We got to trellis them back up to where they're hanging straight again. So that's what I'm doing here with this particular tomato hook. You can see it's attached down to a tomato that's fallen over at the bottom right here. We're gonna trellis this little dude to where she's standing up like this. To do that, you just scroll it up. And then we're gonna be real careful because we've got some blossoms on this one on the bottom. So you can see we had to let them down quite a bit so that they wouldn't get hurt in the process of us rejiggering this. How's it look there?
Looks good.
Pretty good? All right.
So now we're gonna get to rolling these suckers back up so that they're happy in their resting spots again, because what would happen if we left them like this, these tomatoes have all been shaded all this time by these leaves. So if we were to just leave them laying over on the side like this, they would get sun scald. We'll get to it. Are after a very, very long day in the garden. Any final things you want to say? Any words of wisdom or advice?
Well, the only thing I would say is that if I had it to do all over again, I would make sure that I had all of the pieces that I needed to begin with, rather than trying to do it the way that we did it. We were in a time crunch to get everything put together, and the tomatoes had to be trellised before I got the part. If I had it to do over again though, I really wouldn't want to be where we were today, which was having to drop all the tomato plants from their trellis to tighten up and put the T-posts in to hold them up.
On this last one over here, it's still a little bit loose, but we decided that it was good enough to last this season. And then if we want to tighten it up like we did this middle one, it'll be a lot easier to do that when it's not weighted down with plants. We're finally done with all of the trellises, so now we can show you what it looks like. Here we are.
All right, so to talk a little bit about the trellis to make you jealous, this particular trellising idea came from a video done by Josh Sattin. And you can go look it up. It's called The Trellis to Make You Jealous. And that's exactly what we have here. It basically, the whole thing is comprised of a few simple materials. This pipe that you see here is called EMT Conduit, and we used a 1/2 inch. Standard is 3/4 of an inch. All that this entire thing consists of is these PVC Tees, which are 1 1/4 inch. We're using a metal T-post. We would have used taller ones if we had them, but the only ones that we had were about 7 feet tall, and I would have used 10-foot tall ones if I was buying them, so that I would have a little bit more height than what we ended up with, because we ended up with just a little bit higher than 5 feet. We just put the T-post in the ground, put the PVC T on it, and then ran the EMT conduit through. These conduits come in 10-foot sections. Our beds were 16 foot long, and so we had to cut on each trellis so that it would be about the same size as the bed. Luckily for us, we had an EMT conduit cutter, and so we did that. So these are 6 feet long and the other ones are 10 feet long. We also used EMT connectors, and you can see how it's put together. And then what we did, because we used tomato hooks, we just went ahead and took some zip ties that we had at the house and zip tied the tomato hooks directly to the conduit, and then dropped them down to the tomatoes and used the clips on the tomatoes. On these tomato hooks, you have UV resistant string that is specifically designed for trellising, so it lasts longer in the sun, basically. You can use this trellis setup pretty much anywhere, and it's really pretty cheap. To give you an idea of how cheap it is, a 10-foot 1/2 inch conduit costs about $5. The tees cost about $2.50. The connectors that connect the two pieces of the conduit together are roughly $5 for 25 of them or something like that, so not real expensive there. And then the T-posts, it's gonna depend on how tall your T-posts are. The normal 7-foot T-posts are somewhere around $8 at the moment, but it just depends on your location, etc. That's pretty much it. And if you go check out the Trellis to Make You Jealous video that this idea came from, then you'll be able to see how he does that. Josh Sattin was right. It is one of the best trellising methods there is.
Yeah, I think we'll probably do our cucumbers like this every year now.
Well, and I wouldn't have built the one out front quite the same. I might have actually used it instead.
We ready? I'll show you guys the process. We've got all of the cucumbers transplanted. Now we're just gonna string trellis them. Just putting a zip tie on there. You could use wire or whatever. We just use zip ties because we had them here. Just put the hook on. We're just gonna unhook this and then let our slack fall and then wind it up about as many turns as we need to for it to touch, I don't know, a couple inches up off the ground on the cucumber plant. That's probably enough. And then you get one of these clips. This. So the line goes on here like this, and then when you close it, it holds it in place, and then you clip that around the vine. I've never done cucumbers before. Can't be too much different than tomatoes. Like that, and then as it grows, we'll do another clip, and so on and so forth. Now that being said, after doing research and clipping things for almost 2 seasons now, you could do this whole system without any of these hooks here or any of these clips. If all you need was twine in this trellis, and you could just tie the twine to the top rail here and then tie it down to the base of your cucumber, and as your cucumber grows, just wrap it around all the way up the top. If you want to save money, you can do it that way. We would have done it that way had we known what we know now, but that's why we're doing this, so that you can learn from us. That one's kind of small, but it'll still hold it up off the ground, which will help keep the disease off. On to the next. I wanted to show you one more trellising method that we're doing with the determinate tomatoes here. We just got them growing along this fence, and now that they're getting taller, they're gonna need to be clipped soon. So I'll see if I can get one clipped for you. I wanna put this guy up here against the fence. So I'm gonna take my clip here. The big part goes around the tomato, the little part goes around the fence. And then holds it up to the fence there. And that'll be a lot easier to do when it gets bigger and it's bushing out all over the fence and needs support there. That's how we're gonna do those last tomatoes there. All right, I think that wraps it up for today. I hope you enjoyed all of the trellising. I hope it was a lot more fun to watch than it was to do. But thank you for coming and joining us. We really appreciate it when you guys come and hang out with us and get your hands dirty and play in the dirt. We'll see you next time. Bye. I forgot to mention, we have a Facebook group now called Jana's Beautiful Mess. You want to come over there and join us and see more real-time updates on what we've got going on here? Just head on over there and join us. I'll put a link below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and click the little bell notification. Talk to you later. Bye.